Hi everyone, it's Nathan. I'm going to review Eli Roth's 2023 film, Thanksgiving. A man dressed as a pilgrim is getting revenge on the participants of a Black Friday stampede, which wound up turning into a big, gory disaster, and his victims have to figure out who the killer is. And that's about as much of a plot as this movie needs. Every slasher is defined by its villains, so let's just start there. I love this guy. Although I do kind of wish they just called him like the Pilgrim instead of John Carver, which I'm sort of a so-so on. But the design of John Carver feels instantly iconic in this timeless way that I could see spawning like a dozen sequels if this does well, which is kind of a funny compliment to give a character who was originally conceived for a parody trailer. It just goes to show that you can never be too silly for a slasher. John Carver, he's a bit more spry than a lot of the more traditionally lumbering slasher villains. And while there's no effort at finding horror in the colonial associations with pilgrims, there is this funny kind of implicit connection that it makes between the violence and resilience of slasher killers with the Protestant work ethic that pilgrims embody. Like, I don't know, there's some point where he's packing up some like body parts in all these little bags, and I'm just like, damn, this guy's really working hard. Good for him. I don't know. like, I just kind of imagine him coming home after a hard day. His pilgrim wife rubs his shoulders and he's like, "Let us give thanks to the good Lord that he blessed us with these 3 decapitations today, but good golly, I'm tired." Whew. Side note, John Carver's ultimate motivations have nothing to do with like old timey Puritan beliefs or the meaning of Thanksgiving. And that feels like kind of a missed opportunity, right? Anyway, in every scene where John Carver gets to carving, you can feel Eli Roth pepping up compared to the rest of the movie. It's like the kid who always sleeps through science class finally waking up when he gets to dissect a frog. And there are some unforgettably funny kills in this movie, and it'd be a crime for me to spoil them. That's why you're coming to see this thing, and it delivers on that point. I walked out of the theater happy enough with how I spent my time. End of review, some would prefer me to say here. My cursory glance at Letterboxd and even a lot of more traditional critics kind of limit their scope just to the gore. But I feel like that makes for an incomplete review of the Thanksgiving experience. The tagline for this film is "There will be no leftovers." But there is plenty of extra fat on this here turkey. And your enjoyment of this movie, I think, will depend on how much fat you're willing to put up with. Maybe we should begin with a broader question. Do the non-violent scenes in slasher movies matter? Is it stupid to care about things like character and dialogue in a subgenre that's more interested in visceral external threats? Because I feel like kind of a buzzkill even bringing this up. So, a man dressed as a pilgrim is getting revenge on the participants of a Black Friday stampede, which wound up turning into a big gory disaster, and his victims have to figure out who the killer is. That's about as much plot as this movie needs. So, why does it spend so much time setting it all up? Like, there's drama around the family who owns the superstore, there's a high school love triangle, and some teenage sleuthing, none of which really goes anywhere. And to be fair, these scenes are hard to write in slashers because they usually aren't resolved so much as interrupted by a knife through the eyeball or whatever. But the thing is, the dialogue heavy scenes have to be at least like 60 or even 75% of this movie. And those scenes all feel like they were written by someone who has just gobbled down gobs of tryptophan. The camera work gets static and characters kind of just dump exposition at each other and bicker, I guess. And maybe this would be fine if the characters were interesting or at least fun to watch, but any chance for real personality is buried beneath an impenetrable level of spite for everyone and everything around them.
Let's see.
Eli Roth clearly loves all the horror classics. He's championed them many times. He references them in his work. He's got this like cool interview series on Slasher where he talks to all the greats, and that's really nice. But one thing he doesn't seem to have studied is how John Carpenter, Wes Craven, and company never take their characters for granted. When their slashers killed someone, they didn't just destroy a life, they destroyed a web of relationships. And in Thanksgiving, it often feels like there's nothing worthwhile to destroy. There's a short scene I keep coming back to, which is only 2 lines long. Somebody cuts somebody off, and driver number 1 yells, "Fuck you!" To which driver 2 responds with a hearty, "Go fuck yourself!" End of scene. And, every scene and every character in Thanksgiving has this fuck you energy. Whether it's a scene between enemies, friends, or family, whether the scene is about 2 characters pushing each other away or coming together, everyone seems to kind of want each other to fuck off. It is a world whose default face is a sneer. And maybe you could say this is supposed to be some kind of satire about consumerism, warping the meaning of what Thanksgiving is supposed to be all about. But the Black Friday massacre at the beginning of the movie is the only time that this fuck you energy seems to channel those ideas instead of just feeling like a placeholder for better scenes that nobody got around to writing. There are plenty of scenes in relationships that have nothing to do with the holiday theme where people are just as terrible. Consumerism isn't shitty. People are shitty, I guess, is what this movie is trying to say. Or let's be real, it's not really trying to say anything. It feels more like the movie mistakes rudeness for compelling conflict, and so leans on it as a crutch to keep from having to engage with these scenes with the same enthusiasm as it does with all the killing. And it's not that I expect this story to write its despicable characters as deeply as, say, Succession, or to utilize its profanity as poetically as David Mamet, but I do at least expect something, anything to connect with and be interested by. Maybe he could ask Ty West next time to give him some script notes. He seems to have figured it all out. These fuck you scenes might just fade from most people's memories. Maybe nobody really cares how bad the green beans and sweet potatoes are, as long as the turkey is nice and juicy. I just saw Thanksgiving like yesterday, and I already struggle to remember the details of any scene where nobody was screaming. Maybe that's for the best, but it's a shame, because Eli Roth is an enormously talented horror director who can do truly original work, and I know that he can write compelling scenes that complement and elevate the violent stuff. The storyline of the 2 torturer bros in Hostel 2 is so great, and I think they are the main reason why that movie remains my favorite thing of his that I've seen. I think he either needs to find characters like that which inspire him to dig a bit deeper, or he just needs to trim the fat completely so he can give us a more concentrated experience of grisliness. He could take inspiration from the first few Evil Deads, or even his own Grindhouse trailer for this very movie. See you next Friday.